flutes going down these sheets, and these flutes are opened at both ends, and you can see the open sides. So you always want the direction of those flutes going with the slope. So if you have a 24-foot long structure and that is the length of the slope, you're going to put those flutes going down that direction. Base and cap, and then you'll have the base, and then you'll have the cap. So you can tell pretty easily that the base is a lot flatter. The cap is going to be a little bit more round, not as rigid. So this is going to be the middle of our structure. So we will have the length of this base cut to the length of our structure, basically the same size as our polygal itself. Now what we recommend is you actually go an inch beyond for the polygal, so it gives you kind of a drip edge. You have room for the U profile and everything. So whenever you measure it out, you can go an inch over on the end, and then that way it sets it up perfectly for the water doesn't pool underneath it or get caught. So basically I have this set up right in the middle of this center rafter. I'm going to get our pancake head screws, and then basically you start working your way down the structure with a screw on the ends, and then you will put them about every 16 inches down your base. So of course larger structures, which normally is what is done, you'll have this every 4 to 6 feet depending on the width of the sheet, and then you'll put your pancake head screws every 16 inches. All right, so basically whenever you're putting down the base and cap, you'll want to use your 3/16 inch drill bit. I've got one done to show it. Pre-drill the hole, put in your pancake head screw, and then basically you want to go about every 16 inches from screw to screw, and then just make sure you're realigning that base and cap, or the base, so it's in the middle of the sheet. So basically we have our finished product. We have our pancake head screws every 16 inches holding our base down to the structure itself. Another handy tool to have is an air compressor with an air blower, and you can blow out any wood shavings from your pre-drilled holes if you need it. Luckily it's on top of the rafters, so wood shavings won't show as easy. Next step that we'll have is our polygal. So on the polygal sheet itself, there's a couple things that you need to do to prep it. So as you can see, we have two different sides of film. We have one film that is printed on. You'll see you know, all the letters and everything on this, and then you have this other film. It's more like just a white or gray film covering that. Have to be absolutely sure that you put the film with the logo facing the sun, facing up. This is the UV protected side. If you accidentally install this wrong, it will bake out in the sun. So there's one side UV protected. Make sure the side that is logoed is facing up. So first step that we'll do is we will peel back the edges of the film on both sides. And that way we kind of expose the end of the sheet, so we can put on our vent tape. So then the next step that you'll do is get your vent tape, measure it out to the width of the sheet, bit on the sheet itself. So what this vent tape does is it allows the material to still breathe, because there is air inside these flutes, but it keeps out any dust, bugs, particles, anything like that that you don't want to have in there. So it's very important that you do tape off the ends of these. We have both sides taped, and then they'll be ready to install on the structure. All right, so now we got our U profile. We're going to measure out our 48 inches. Where I use our snips, and you snip the top, bottom, bend it back, snip it off. So then you have your nice clean edge on your U profile, and we can pop that onto the sheet after we drill the weep holes. So weep holes on the sheet itself, this is again where you want to use your 3/16" drill bit, and if you see the U profile itself, you will have a longer leg and a top leg. Now the top leg itself is actually going to go on the top of the sheet, the UV protected side of the sheet, and then this will be the bottom, so it'll install on like this. You will see a little piece right here where that sheet comes in and butts up against it. So what we want to drill is some weep holes, so if any condensation, moisture, anything gets into this U profile, eventually it'll have a way to dry out with some holes coming in. So with the 3/16" drill bit, you just come in and at the end, start at the end, and you just want to make sure you break through that one surface only. And again, you measure about every 12 inches, and you'll put them throughout the length of the sheet. So you'll see our weep holes installed on the long edge of the U profile, 3/16" hole roughly every 12 inches to allow for moisture to escape. And now make sure that film, and the reason I haven't taken the film off the bottom yet is since we're handling the sheet, putting on the U profile, putting on the vent tape, we can reduce any scratches or damage, anything of that nature. So basically I'll start on the end where that basin cap goes, and you pop it on. And you can use a rubber mallet if you need some help wiggling it on. It's a lot easier if you start from one end and work your way down the sheet to get it popped on. So now we're going to trim another piece of U profile to get to the width of the sheet. So make sure that paper's peeled back, film, we're leaving the film on to make sure we don't damage that sheet as we're putting these steps onto it. And then you start it, get your finger in one side, widen it out, put it to the edge, and then just wiggle it on, making it wider as it goes. Again, short leg on top. And boom, you got your vent tape and U profile protecting the open ends of the flutes on both sides of the sheet. So next step is make sure you're clear of any tools, anything, and you will want to peel the film on the bottom side of the sheet, which is the white film, off. Alright, so now that we have the film removed off the bottom of the sheet, since we're going to go ahead and put it onto the structure, we are going to peel back the top here, and one in. So we can put it onto the base itself. So when you're looking at the basin cap, you will see the profile that comes in from the base and the side of the sheet. And what you want to make sure you leave room for is enough room for expansion. So as you go throughout the day and the temperature changes, the sheet itself will expand and contract. And if you don't leave room for that, you could hear some creaking noises, some popping noises, some of those things. So you just want to leave at least an 1/8 inch to a 3/16 inch gap into the side of the sheet. So what we're doing now is making sure that we have that gap, and we are lined up to the top of the structure. If this is going against the house, like a structure on side of a house, you'll want to make sure you leave a little bit of room to the end of the sheet to the structure itself for the same expansion and contraction. So now what we can do is go ahead and secure this sheet on before we put on the other sheet and add the cap. Now you could go ahead and lay down the other sheet. I like to go ahead and screw it down to make sure it doesn't move as you're putting the other one up. So remember, you have that 1/8 inch gap between the wall of the base and the sheet itself. And what you want to do is pre-drill a hole so you have room for expansion and contraction. That 3/8 inch hole is very important because if the washer is actually holding the sheet down, not the screw on the side of the sheet. So if you have that washer holding it down, it has room to expand and contract on the screw itself, so that way you won't hear that creaking or anything like that. So pre-drill your holes around the perimeter, and those will be every 16 inches around the perimeter. In the middle of the sheet on the rafter, you'll want to make sure you secure that. Now it's very easy to put all the screws that you have because we sell these in bags of 100, but you don't need too many. Recommended is a screw in the center of the sheet every 48 to 72 inches. So on this one, you know, we'll have basically one screw in the middle, but since it's one 8-foot sheet, I'm going to put 2. And of course, if you're in an area that has a lot of updraft, a lot of wind, really high structure, anything like that, you can always put more screws in. So it's really up to your discretion. It's just recommended middle of the sheet, 48 to 72. And that's the same for a 4-footer or a 6-footer. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill. So now that you have your pre-drilled holes around the sheet, what you'll want to do before you put the screw with the washer down is put a dab of silicone in that top surface, and then you find your screw with the bigger washer on it. And you tighten it down to the sheet. Now the most important thing whenever you do this is you do not want to over tighten these screws because that washer will pinch the material itself. So you just want to have enough to snug it up because the washer is holding itself down. So we're just going to go around and finish . We got our perimeter screwed down. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is peel back the film uncover that beautiful bottom out. And then this is where we are going to measure and drill, pre-drill, and secure the center of the sheet. Silicone. Put our dab in these. So now we have one. This is where you'll want to make sure you have your expansion gap on this side of the sheet as well. So now that we have our proper expansion with the base and the sheet itself, we repeat the process. Go ahead and screw down this sheet, and so I'm going to go ahead and screw all this down, and we'll come back and put the cap on. Alright, now that we got the sheet screwed down on the perimeter, peel this film. Alright, now that we got the structure completely covered, we're going to come back and put on our cap. Again, we just want to make sure we're lined up right, and you will see the hooks in the cap and then how they're different on the base. So you will basically just squeeze it in there, make sure it locks in on both sides, and where you have it on the U profile, it's going to have that little gap. So this is what I was talking about at the very beginning of the video, is if you wanted to, you could cut the basin cap short and then run one long length of U profile all the way down. And it's really whichever way you want to do it. If you do that, that U profile runs, when that basin cap stops, you can run a dab of silicone right on the top. So basically now, you just pop down the basin cap going down as you go down the length. And this is where a rubber mallet will come in handy. And we're done.